Meus amigos, alguns felizardos tiveram a possibilidade de jogar Doom The Dark Ages por 3 horas antes do seu lançamento e começaram a publicar as suas impressões aí pelo YouTube, novos gameplays e tudo mais, e nesse vídeo aqui nós vamos conferir justamente um vídeo da IGN falando sobre o game e mostrando novas cenas de gameplay. Eles explicam bastante das mecânicas básicas do jogo ali, né, como é que ela vai funcionar, daquele mecha também, aquele robô gigantão lá, o Megazord que a gente viu no primeiro trailer também, então tem muita coisa legal pra gente poder conferir juntos. Saudações, eu sou Caio Nobre, simbora pra mais um conteúdo aqui no canal. Se você curte os nossos vídeos, já deixa aí seu likezão, se inscreve e ativa o sininho das notificações pra não perder absolutamente nada dos conteúdos que fazemos por aqui, sejam eles vídeos, lives ou shorts, e vejam o vídeo que nós publicamos mais cedo de Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, onde eu comento ali e jogo também o Beta 2 sobre melhoras e tudo mais com relação ao Beta 1. Tá aqui embaixo no comentário fixado, acessa lá e dê essa forcinha pra gente se vocês puderem. Beleza, meus amigos? Então, vamos que vamos, pessoal. Eu tô aqui com o preview da IGN devidamente preparado, com legendas ativadas aqui pra gente poder ir conferindo, ao passo que eles vão mostrando pra gente também muitos trechos insanos e viscerais de gameplay, cara. Então, sem mais delongas, bora lá, meus amigos. Eu acho que o volume já tá num grauzinho bom, a gente vai ajustando qualquer coisa. Ixi Maria, começou como?
But what I didn't count on was such an exhilarating amount of demon killing variety. By the end of my 2-hour demo, I'd used a sawtoothed
foram
shield
2
to
horas.
slice through demons like it was Beelzebub's Beyblade, stomped around a war-ravaged city as a colossal mecha slayer,
Ao mecha.
and even brought a snarling cyber demon to an explosive end by breathing fire directly down its throat with my faithful dragon steed. Talk about a heartwarming moment.
Caramba, mano, referência a Godzilla, hein? É Godzilla, né?
It may take place in the dark ages of the Doom timeline, but the Slayer's latest Slaughterfest might well represent the peak of the series' modern era. Cue the head-crushing guitar riff. Let's start with the most crucial new change, the shield. While 2016's Doom was focused on run and gun, and 2020's Doom Eternal evolved into jump and shoot, the core combat principle of Doom The Dark Ages is to stand and fight. That's not to say I wasn't immediately strafing through the strife as I met each new wave of Satan's soldiers, but the Doomslayer's new shield allowed me to hold my ground and block or parry enemy attacks.
Você taca o escudo, dá parry, desviar pro... Olha, mano, o parry.
Which enemy attacks can be deflected and which can't, it's basically traffic light rules. Red means stop and green means go. Or for Star Wars fans, red is bad and green is good.
Ok. Ele tá fazendo referência, acho que a cor dos ataques, né, lá. Os vermelhos não tem como, então. Aí, ó, é isso mesmo.
In order to perfectly bat back everything from searing bolts of energy fired by enemy archers to the deadly volleys launched by the hulking hell tanks. It introduces a welcome new test of your timing and positioning on top of the already high-intensity gunplay, which has also been revitalized by an awe-inspiring arsenal that includes a machine gun that crushes skulls and spits out shards of bone, and just might be the most heavy metal weapon ever conceived. But the shield isn't there simply to block and deflect. It can also bear the brunt of a powerful lunging bash that instantly closes the distance between you and your target, and you can even rev up its spinning saw-toothed edge like a chainsaw and hurl it. The shield will pinball through crowds of weaker enemies like the imps, or it can be lodged straight into the sternums of the beefier imp walkers to stun lock them in place while you mop up the lesser minions around them.
Caraca, meu irmão, que doideira, velho.
The Slayer's shield can also work in tandem with your bulging bag of boomsticks in some incredibly satisfying ways. Come up against a platoon of soldiers marching behind seemingly impenetrable steel shields of their own, just pump a few super shotgun rounds into their metal mobile cover to heat it up until it's visibly molten, before frisbeeing your shield straight at them to ignite the entire group and shower yourself in valuable armor pickups from the resulting explosion. The Dark Ages shield is perhaps the most devastating interpretation of the phrase "the best offense is a good defense," and it makes the new Doom feel like the greatest unofficial Captain America game ever made. Only, instead of fighting an army of Nazis, you're battling the most evil villains that hell has to
Doom
offer,
é o jogo
which
não
I
oficial do
suppose
Capitão
are both
América, o
one
melhor
and
jogo
the
não
same.
oficial já feito, né?
At any rate, no sooner had I settled into the Dark
Com a do
Ages'
escudo, no caso.
sensational new shield-wielding combat system, than I was suddenly whisked into the cockpit of a massive mecha slayer to take on the tallest terrors to ever emerge from a hell
Isso é
portal.
top,
These
mano.
Atlan assault mechs have only been teased in the past couple of Doom
Olha
games,
isso, véi.
but in the Dark Ages they're finally pilotable, and I was absolutely thrilled to get behind the controls of one of these green-helmed Goliaths in order to raise some hell. Or should I say, raise some hell, as I stomped out tiny tanks and crashed through bridges lined with troops, on my way to going toe to towering toe with each Titan demon trying to take me down. Yes, Doom the Dark Ages takes the series' signature ultra-violence and literally elevates it into kaiju-sized carnage. Its
Elevou a
Atlan combat is
brutalidade
simple
a
in
nível de
setup, but
kaiju.
seriously satisfying in execution. As you repeatedly pump the right trigger to unleash combos with a pair of school bus-sized fists, with each successful blow you land filling up a special meter consisting of 2 halves. Fill it halfway and you can deliver a powerful stomp that sends a shockwave through the earth below and opens up cracks of damaging lava that stagger your opponent. Fill it completely and you can deal a devastating finishing move to force Lucifer's Leviathans to go in peace, or more specifically in freshly shredded pieces. If you like your 50-story tall fisticuffs with a side order of gargantuan guns, then fear not, because midway through the level a whopper of a weapon drop gave my mech access to a machine gun so large it could use an aeroplane hangar for a holster. Performing perfect dodges on incoming enemy attacks powers up both barrels of this not-so-mini gun, and I was soon blasting gloriously gory chunks of flesh off each Titan's torso that showered onto the soldiers below. You don't normally see this much raining blood without buying a ticket to a Slayer concert and sticking around for the encore. Unfortunately, I was only given the smallest taste of these supersized shootouts, since my hands-on quickly switched tracks from Godzilla to Game of Thrones as I slipped out of the Atlan's cockpit and into the saddle of a cybernetic dragon, complete with twin cannons and a pair of dazzling laser wings. Soaring through the skies above a humongous holy city, I took the fight to a series of Hellcarrier airships, again performing perfect dodges to power up my attacks, to demolish the artillery along their sides and the deadly assault cannons atop their hulls. With each airship's defences disabled, I was then able to swoop down to its exposed landing zone, leap off my dragon to briefly blast through Hades' hordes on the flight deck, before shield bashing into its central power core and forcing the whole thing to erupt like a hell-spawned Hindenburg, as I flew to safety aboard my scaly skybound steed. Both the Atlan and Cyber Dragon sections proved to be propulsive palate cleansers rich with spectacle, but I was itching for more of that bitchin' shield and shoot 'em up action. Thankfully, the Slayer was soon brought back down to Earth to unleash further terror on terra firma, as my hands-on finished with a taste of one of Doom the Dark Ages' sprawling sandbox levels.
Level Sandbox, mano, mais aberto, né, pra gente explorar.
Somewhat directed action set pieces, this bumper battlefield level dubbed The Siege gave me the freedom to tackle its objectives in any order and progress through it entirely at my own pace. Thus, in between exhilarating encounters with waves of heavily armoured mancubuses and shield-based slugfests with super heavy cyber demons,
Nossa, que da hora o parry, mano. Você viu na espadona?
Landscape in all directions for gold to spend on weapon upgrades,
Uia!
collectible toys, and even brand new guns to add to my growing arsenal of demon destroyers. This included the Reaver Chain Shot, which delivered powerful charged up attacks that basically allowed me to fire a cannonball to instantly mulch a monster, before attracting it on a chain and firing it again to crush their minion mate beside them. Kind of like a chain chomp, but not nearly as adorable. The expanded map also provided plenty of nooks and crannies to hunt through for health and armor pickups, including melee ammo for the Slayer's new flail and electrified gauntlet attacks. That's right, as if the Slayer wasn't already badass enough, he now manually reloads his punches like he's Henry Cavill in the bathroom brawl scene from Mission Impossible Fallout.
Referência de novo, ó.
The overall impression I got from the Dark Ages siege map is that, although it's large in size, it's incredibly dense with breathtaking discoveries and diverse encounters.
Pô, isso é
Some
legal,
open
mano.
field fights locked mini-bosses behind a morale meter, keeping them immune to my attacks until I'd hustle to take out a few dozen of their
Ó, mini-bosses em áreas exploráveis, muita coisa pra gente poder descobrir, com esse espaço mais aberto. Isso é uma das coisas que os outros Dooms não tinham, né? Uma área bem mais ampla pra gente explorar, assim.
Challenging me to use my shield for environmental puzzle solving, either as a grappling hook to launch me to otherwise unreachable areas,
Olha que loucura,
or a tool
puzzles
to
com
manipulate
escudo.
the controls of a variety of arcane machines. There were
Que da
wonderful
hora.
surprises almost everywhere I looked, but also some not so wonderful ones. Like this giant tentacle that suddenly emerged from the ground beneath my feet in a swamp area and turned me from unstoppable beast to recently deceased in an instant.
É louco.
With that, my time in the Slayer's combat boots was up, and what a brief but utterly brilliant ride it had been. If this small taste is anything to go by, then I'm pretty sure that the only reason id Software is calling this one Doom the Dark Ages is because the title of The Ultimate Doom was already taken 3 decades ago. From its satisfying shield-based combat shake-up and enticing sandbox-level structures, to its Pacific Rim-rocking skyscraper-sized beatdowns and its dazzling dragon-riding dogfights, the team behind Doom the Dark Ages is seemingly throwing everything but Hell's Kitchen sink into making this the biggest and best campaign seen to date in the seminal shooter series.
Isso é impressionante, cara. Como é que eles conseguem evoluir mais e mais a fórmula Doom a cada jogo.
If you've ever wanted in on the wanton demon destruction but have previously been too intimidated to try, Doom the Dark Ages looks to have you covered. Not only is there an expanded number of difficulty settings to choose from this time, with 6 different levels of challenge from the
Vários níveis de dificuldade para poder tornar acessível pra galera, né?
Nightmare, but there are also tools to tweak almost every aspect of the experience. That includes sliders to adjust everything from parry timing windows to the damage dealt from each attack and the overall speed of the action. Whether you want it to be a friction-free power trip or a synapse-straining punishment, Doom the Dark Ages seems to have the flexibility to allow any level of player to become a god-tier slayer.
Eles
What's more,
fizeram
since it's a prequel to the 2016 reboot, you can go in completely fresh even if you have NFI what a BFG is.
A
Doom the
BFG,
Dark Ages
rapaz.
is set to arrive on PC, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series XS on May 15th. Until then, if you want a daily dose of Doom, you could just spend a few minutes scrolling through social media.
Every day's just a little bit worse.
But if you want more Doom the Dark Ages, be sure to check out our interview with the team at id Software and the gameplay overview trailer. And for everything else, rip and tear into IGN.
Topzera demais, cara. Eu acho impressionante como é que os caras, desde o Doom 2016, eles foram evoluindo gradativamente, né? Com esse remake, podemos dizer assim. E nesse daqui, eles estão inovando mais uma vez a fórmula Doom, que parece ser uma parada bem padrão, assim, que se a gente pensa, tipo, pô, não tem como eles crescerem mais além disso. E eles estão fazendo isso mais uma vez, com a adição do escudo, com a adição desse jogo mais ficar em pé e lutar, como a IGN colocou aqui pra gente, né? Colocando agora um cenário mais aberto pra gente poder explorar. Eles falaram ali, né? Eles mencionaram o termo Sandbox, então deve ter diversas áreas pra gente poder explorar aqui, descobrir novos inimigos, descobrir novos segredos não, né? Descobrir segredos pra gente poder fazer upgrades no nosso personagem, pra ele poder ficar mais forte e tal. Cara, esse jogo vai ser incrível, meus amigos. Assim como foi o Doom 2016, assim como foi o Doom que veio depois dele, que eu acabei esquecendo o nome, mano. E agora o The Dark Ages também. Tô muito empolgado, quero ver mais. Parece que teve vídeo de gameplay puro saindo por aí também. E a gente deve fazer um videozinho com relação a isso aqui pra gente poder conferir junto. Agora, por enquanto, eu quero saber de você, querido espectador que tá assistindo, o que vocês acharam de tudo que foi falado e mostrado aqui desses novos gameplays e impressões da IGN também. Vocês curtiram? Vocês estão animados aí com esse novo Doom? Deixa aqui embaixo suas opiniões, eu vou adorar ver de cada um. E mais uma vez, não se esqueçam do likezão, se inscrever no canal e ativar o sininho para não perder a notificação dos próximos vídeos. Eu vou ficando por aqui, um beijão para todos vocês aí, até mais e fuemos, meus amigos.